So, dear friends, I was talking to someone recently, and it's a suggestion that I've heard on a few occasions where someone is maybe struggling with some difficulties, and then they say, Jenny, I'd just love to be a hermit. I'd love to be a hermit. Just head away and be a hermit and not have to deal with people and not have to live off the grid, I think is how they say it these days. I'm going to live off the grid, going to get my solar panels, going to get a sheep and a cow and a wife who likes turnips, and going to have her own vegetable patch, live off the grid. No wife, actually, no, hang on, hermit. So hermit, we're going to live the hermit lifestyle and just head away into the wilderness. The thing is, though, I remember talking to a very good priest, founder of my community, and we were talking about a particular sister. There was something there was an issue, and something I needed to resolve, and I didn't know how to quite help this sister. And he just said to me, it was an expression I'd never heard before. He said, do you know, she has a hard time of it as well. She has to live with herself. Like, she has to live with herself. And it's an interesting kind of a thing, because I think at your age, maybe you're not very set in your ways yet. And maybe like there's still a lot of discovery, still a lot of growth and potential. There's a lot of, when you're younger, you're used to kind of being formed. When you go to school, you do what you're told. When you go to high school, similarly, you do what you're told. When you go to college, you have to kind of grow up and start doing things for yourself. As in, like, you turn up to lectures because that's the right thing to do, not because the lecturer actually cares, because he doesn't. You don't turn up, he just simply fails you if you don't know your stuff. End of story. But then we start to get a little more kind of set in our way of doing things and our way of seeing things. And it's harder then to change our hearts. And conversion means change. To convert means to change direction. Metanoia in Greek, right? It means to change direction. So it's very hard for us to convert if we're not willing to change, right? Now, at your age, you're still growing and changing. I think it's why it's easier to grow and to be formed when you're younger. That's why we have an age limit of 18 to 30 here in Holy Family. Once you hit 30, it's all downhill. It's all downhill. Now, once you hit 30, it's just harder to be formed, because you're used to your independence, used to doing things your way. But that's the whole issue. Doing things my way. Is that what makes me happy? Do you know, like having that independence? If I were to live as a hermit, would that actually make me happier? Well, ultimately, I still have to live with me. And I'm not sure if any of you are there yet. Maybe you are. But any of the sins that you struggle with them, and it's no one else's fault. Right? These are things that you struggle with. And it's not that Satan told you to do it, or it's not that you have bad friends or bad influence. You simply did the wrong thing, and you consistently, in that particular area, decide to do the wrong thing. This isn't an accusation at all, but say, for example, you gossip. All right, so when you sit down, and you have this little kind of grin on your face, you just kind of sit down beside someone, and they're like, what? And you're like, oh, nothing. What is it? Oh, it's nothing. It's nothing. Oh, Jesus, look. Like, what's going on? I shouldn't say anything, right? Okay, I shouldn't say anything. I shouldn't. Just don't tell anyone, okay? But, right? And you love having the juicy goss, like having the gossip, like spilling the tea, I believe is the contemporary expression. You just love having, because it makes you interesting. People are like, what is it? What happened? What did they say? What did you hear? Oh, and then they have to kind of dig it out of you. And of course you're going to tell them, you're just kind of pretending, feigning prudence, but ultimately, you just like being interesting. Okay. And then afterwards, when you see the person, you go, Yeesh. Yeah, actually that wasn't prudent really, was it? I shouldn't have said that. And then you try again, but then the following day or 2 days later, you see something scandalous, something shocking, something surprising, something funny at another person's expense. And you just can't wait to tell someone. Or, I've got a friend who struggles with alcohol, and it's the same kind of thing. They make resolutions. I'm going to stop. I'm going to stop. Right? I'm stopping. I'm stopping. Okay. And then I'd ask them, well, are you serious? I am. I'm serious. I am honestly going to stop. Okay, good. So what have you planned for Saturday night? Oh, nothing. We'll just see how it goes. You'll see how it goes. Because for the last 15 years, you know how it goes if you just leave it go as it goes. What have you planned for Saturday night so that you have an alternative to going out? Because if you don't plan anything, you'll get the call, hey, we're heading over to Kelly's, you want to come? No, that's you being prudent. You said no, I said no. No. All the lads are there, right? All the lads are there. And actually, Johnny's back from Australia as well, so come on, you have to come out. All right, so. And then there you are. You know what I mean? Like, once you get the taste of one drink, one becomes seven becomes I don't know how many. I can't count after seven when you know what I mean? So, unless we plan for something, we'll generally fall into the same habits as always. And the sad thing, or the really important realization that our first reading from the prophet Joel is trying to transmit to us, the Lord says, I am going to sit in judgment on all the nations around. That means us. Put the sickle in. You know what a sickle is? It's like a big, great, the Grim Reaper. Ever seen the Grim Reaper? He has a sickle. It's like a curved blade that you use for cutting. Back in the day, you used it for cutting oats or barley or wheat. So put the sickle in, the harvest is ripe. Come and tread. The winepress is full, the vats are overflowing. So great is their wickedness. Okay, slight tangent, and we'll come back. Everything during Mass, everything on the altar is the fruit of some sort of suffering, if you will. So grapes are crushed, and from a crushed grape, you get wine. That's what they're talking about here. They're saying, come and tread. That's, they would squash the grapes with their washed feet back in the day. You put the wine into a big bath, and then you hopefully wash your feet, or maybe that gives it a little tangy or whatever. You press them, you walk up and down, you press, you squish, and then it all kind of leaks out into a funnely thing and into your wee bottles. Okay, so grapes are crushed to give us wine. Wheat is crushed to give us the Holy Communion. Traditionally as well, candles were made from beeswax. Bees are somewhat squished, or bees have to do whatever they do to make candles. But there's giving, there's crushing, there's something being. That's something when you're squashed or when you're crushed, when you're pressed. What comes out of you? I remember hearing this very simple analogy before of a person who was just standing with their chai latte full to the top with 1.5 centimeters of foam on top and oat milk, of course, oat milk, and a slight sprinkle of cinnamon, if that's what's done, I don't know. And someone walked along and hit their elbow, right? And of course, it splashes. And then they say, I got coffee all over myself. And the observer said, well, of course you got coffee all over yourself. That's what was in the cup. Now, I wouldn't recommend you say that to anyone. If that ever happens to you, that's like one of those really irritating things to say. But point is, when you get hit, when you get knocked, what splashes out of you is what is in you. So when life, as Americans would say, it throws a curveball at you, when something goes wrong and you get a knock, right? What will spill out of you is what is in you. So if what spills out of you is, oh sure, praise the Lord, sure, look, he'll take care of it. Then what fills you is faith, peace. If what spills out of you is, you stupid, you. Then what fills you is anger, judgment, criticism, And the sad thing is, we have to live with ourselves, which is actually harder than it may seem. So at times running off to be a hermit, while it might sound wonderful, doesn't actually fix those tendencies or those problems or those weaknesses of our personality. And then eventually, we actually do have to answer to God. And this isn't not that we should be afraid of this. We should have serious reverence for that moment, but not living in fear of it. But I do have to answer for how I lived. I do have to answer for the words that come out of my mouth. I do have to answer for the actions I do. And this works both ways. If what comes out of my mouth is positive and affirming and loving and charitable, then when I answer to God, I mean, He'll say, you helped these people through your affirmation, through your validation, through your patience. So you can answer for the good things as well. But for the occasions when I didn't choose God or virtue, I have to answer for those too. And that's, you see, where community life is a gift. Because I find myself, if I want to grow in virtue, I find it much, much harder if I have no accountability. Right? Like, for example, if I were to say to all, right, that I'm going to do an extra hour, half hour of adoration, first thing in the morning or last thing at night or whatever it was. If I say that to ye, now that I've said it, now I have to do it. Whereas if I just say to myself, yeah, sure, maybe I'll do a little more prayer, right? And then I don't do it for a week. I'm not accountable, so nothing changed. No one knows, so Or if I say to you, like, okay, I'm going to say this out loud, and I'm going to regret it, I'm going to say it anyway. But, like, okay, I'll say it. One thing I've wanted to do for months, and I'm going to tell ye now, so that now I have to do it, is that once I go up to my hermitage at night, I want to leave my phone in the house here. So that way, once I go up there, there's silence, there's no distraction, time off, time out, time with the Lord, actually, to learn how to be with the Lord more in silence. Now, I've said it to you, now I have to do it. All right. Okay, fine. I'll do it with joy. Going to unite it silently to the cross now. Just going to But, like, see what I mean? Now that I've said it, and now there's a community here, there are now witnesses. Now I'm accountable. Now I have to do it. Now I have to grow. Whereas if I'm on my own all the time, I don't. I'm not as accountable. So community life is a blessing. Do you know, if you're trying to strive for some sort of a virtue, the community holds you accountable. Not in a judging kind of way, but like we're trying to grow in virtue. So what does that mean? Well, it means punctuality, for example. Just turning up when you're supposed to, doing your job well, without getting distracted. You know what I mean? Just on your job, do your job, because then it helps everyone else get their free time and so on. We try to, learn how to do things and learn how to do things well and efficiently and so on and so forth. And this helps the community. And if I don't turn up, if I don't do what I'm supposed to do, if I do gossip, if I start to have an exclusive relationship with someone, the community holds us accountable. And that's how I grow. I would not grow on my own on Achill Island. If I was on some island up the coast of Ireland somewhere, living on my own, I would not grow in those ways. Because you can just sit there. I remember an old lady saying to me once, she was she was in her late 90s, and I was going to give her the sacrament to the sick, and I said, do you want to go to confession? And she said, oh, Janie, now I've been bedridden for the last 6 months, I can't sin. And I said, if only it was that easy. You can sin in anger, judgmentality, criticism, pride, lust, almost all sins, apart from like grievous bodily harm, although you could actually arrange for someone else to do it for you. Do you know what I mean? You could. So, you can actually do all sins, commit all sins without moving a muscle. Do you know what I mean? So, no, it's not that easy that if you can't move, you can't sin. So, yeah, we have to grow, change, and learn, and the community helps us to do that. That's why it's rare that in religious life monks lived on their own. Even when they went to go off and live in hermits, generally speaking, people joined them. And it's a gift. It is a blessing. Because ultimately I have to live with myself. I have to live with all of these failures and inabilities, and I have to live with all of this, and I have to try and carry this, and I have to try and overcome them, so that when I do meet the Lord face to face, that I've fought valiantly, and that I've overcome as many of them as I can before my time is up. Because in the best way possible, in the most merciful, loving way possible, but also in all truth, the Lord sits in judgment for all the nations around us. Put the sickle in, the harvest is ripe. Come and tread, the winepress is full, the vats are overflowing. So great is their wickedness. Lord, may you help us to grow, heal. May you help us to increase in virtue, to overcome our vices. That when we meet you, you will say, well done, good and faithful servant. Come and enjoy the place reserved for you by my Father.